Welcome to Business Innovators Radio, featuring industry influencers and trendsetters sharing proven strategies to help you build a better life right now.
Hi, this is Tammy Patzer, and I am pleased to introduce you to our guest today, Carolyn Hall. Carolyn is the president of CL3 Agency, a unique coaching company, and she writes about the importance of staying optimally healthy in mind, body, and spirit, which includes self-improvement, family management, and professional development. Welcome, Carolyn.
Hi, how are you?
I'm great. I was reading in the notes, and you said something that struck me, and I want to address it right away. You say self-talk is not a sign of mental illness. However, it can be a valuable tool to having positive and effective communication with others. Wow, what a relief. Can you tell me a little bit more about that?
Absolutely. I believe that is a profound statement as well. And the reason is I believe how we talk to ourselves, what we do to ourselves, with ourselves, matters. I believe it's the foundation, and it's the how we branch out, if for lack of better words, in dealing with other people. So if you learn how to talk to yourself, if you learn how to treat yourself, I believe that that's just a catalyst to you being able to do those same things with other people.
I think you're right, because self-talk is so important, and one of the things that I know is I will catch myself saying these really nasty things to myself. What is that all about, and what can we do to improve our self-talk?
Well, first of all, I believe it starts with knowing thyself. It isn't uncommon that we can be our worst enemy. That's almost human nature. It's something in that brain that I'm not a scientist, but I doubt even scientists can figure it out, because there's just some things to the human brain that we don't get as humans. And I believe because we become our worst, we don't become our worst enemy. We don't set out to be our worst enemy. Let me say it that way, in my opinion. And in my experiences of talking with people, there's usually something that has triggered it, whether it's a situation, a transitional period someone may be in, and that is so wide. A variety of things. It can be empty nest. It can be a divorce. It can be coping with the death of a loved one. But something seems to trigger where you start to recognize, like you just said, you noticed the other day. I have no doubt. I haven't known you for a long time, but I can guess that that's not the first time. But maybe you just didn't realize it or recognize it or notice it, which is also very common, because in the hustle and bustle of our days and dealing with so many different things, we're not really concentrating on some of our literal everyday steps or daily routines or daily exercises or habits that we have. But usually when you go through something, in my experience, that's when people start to notice, because you start by asking yourself questions. Why am I feeling this way? What's wrong with me? Why do I fail? I hate that word personally. Oh, I don't like it, because to me there's no such thing as failing. I say it didn't work this time, so you try it again. But we know what the word means. So in this context, I'll use it. But it can be something as simple as that, Tammy, that can trigger why you start even questioning yourself. And then when you say, what can we do about it? I like that question, because that's exactly what we try to teach people, whether it's an individual basis, one-on-one, or whether it's in a group. Stop, look, and listen. Stop, look, and listen. We have to stop the hustle and bustle that we talked about and self-reflect. If you don't do those things and actually stop, look, and listen to what you're actually replying to yourself, you ask yourself a question, answer it, and then pay attention to that answer. Because hopefully you will look at your list, and I do encourage creating a list, literally. Something about once you get to writing, all these things just come to your head. But once you look at that list, you're going to be able to take each one by itself. Some of them you'll be able to group together. You'll say, oh, well, this is similar. This is similar because maybe it has to be categorized under family. Because that's the other thing you have to do is you have to categorize family, friends, business, workplaces, neighbors. So once you begin to get this exercise down or get this into your habit of stop, look, and listening, questioning yourself, self-reflecting, coming up with an answer, then you're going to know what you need to work on. And then that's when you have to seek solutions.
That's really, really important. So stop, look, listen. One of the things that I notice is that I'm not, how do I say this? I'm not always just like one person when it comes to my triggers, I guess. And you talk about 5 types of harmful self-talk, and I imagine that all of us, either are heavier into one form of harmful self-talk as well as positive self-talk. But since we're talking about the harmful ones, can you go ahead and kind of outline some of the harmful self-talk so that we can recognize maybe where we're beating ourselves up and give us some, like an example and maybe some whys? And again, we can come back and talk about, well, how do we fix this? But if you can do that.
Sure, I'd love to, and that's very key because sometimes people go in to try to fix something or find a solution without even defining or identifying what the issue is. So what we did in our research is we did a survey, sent it out to over 1,000 people, and they were just simple questions, everyday questions, and then we took that, we sorted it and collated it, and we categorize people. Okay, this is what we've come up with. And this is not new to the industry terms. It is probably some people may have already heard this before, but I liked how we did our exercise because it also, not only did it jar all of us, my team and myself, to kind of recognize a few things that maybe we didn't before, it also helped us put it in a short format that we can share with other people. So the 5 types of harmful self-talk is the worrier. I believe that this was the highest percentage because what I had the team do is I wanted it listed, with the highest, working its way down. The worrier is someone that feels anxious a lot, and they just can't seem to stop imagining the worst, and they often think of that word failure or bad. Some might even limit themselves by associating embarrassing, the word embarrassing, to something. And the worrier is always on the alert for problems or often ask questions. Well, what about if this happens? Or what do I do if this happens? Or, well, what if they don't perceive me right or accept me? What if? So that's our worrier. The next one we found was the critic. Now, this was in our hive because I don't believe that people even realize what they do sometimes and how critical they sound to others. And I believe in business, I come across this a lot. I'll hear a lot of people say it's so discouraging to them that they don't have the support of their family or their loved one, because it seems like they're always criticizing or finding something wrong with what they're doing. And then that just kind of squashes their drive or their passion. But the critic is someone that can't stop judging. They evaluate themselves. They always seem to find flaws in their looks or those of others even. The critic tends to jump on any mistake that's made and reminds themselves and others about these failures. So they're rarely finding anything good about themselves. They focus on they don't focus on the positive, and common expressions may even include, "I'm such a loser," or "he's stupid," or "she's stupid." The third one we found was the victim. This person feels like nothing ever works out for them, and they just don't believe they can make any changes because so many things keep getting in their way. The victim sometimes can think there's something wrong with themselves and that they are defective and they're unworthy, and so they'll often tell themselves, "I just can't do it," or "nothing ever goes my way." And for those of people that know me, from my children to my family members to business associates or even coworkers, I am such a firm believer, and I am quick to tell someone, sometimes you have to check yourself, if I could just say it that way. Because if you're sounding like the victim, that's you. It's not necessarily somebody else telling you these things. It's you. And I guarantee if you were to look at a lot of different aspects in your life, you are playing victim. And victim sometimes can be equal to making excuses.
Where does the shame, feeling ashamed, does that fall into the worrier, the critic, or the victim?
Well, it can, and that's an excellent point, because that's exactly what I say to people. Nobody talks. I am so not the type of person to tell you you're wrong for what you feel, you're wrong for thinking this way. I don't like it when I hear people say that, to be honest with you, because nobody's wrong for what you feel. And there are situations that have put us in victimized situations. I've been there. I was married in an abusive relationship, and it wasn't to the point where I was, he was coming home every day and I cooked steak when he wanted spaghetti, and so I got hit. But it was emotional. It was a lot of mental. It wasn't so much. I'll give credit where it's due. It wasn't so much financially, but yet in my older years of maturing, and I looked back at our financial situation, he did. He gave me the credit cards. He let me go spend and this and that, but he also had his thumb on it. So who knows if we would have stayed married, what that could have been like for me. But the emotional and the mental, and then even sometimes that physical, was enough for me to become, I was a victim. Mm-hmm. I was. That's the reality of it. But see, I wasn't victimizing myself in my mind. And it took me a good 5 years, and I know stories where it took them years. So 5 years is almost like butter on a cake to some people. Right. Some people have been going through it so long. And then let's go back to that mind again, how powerful mm-hmm. the mind is. We become conditioned to our environment, which is why they say, right, how you raise a child, pay attention, because 9 out of 10 times that's what's going to be the foundation of that child. So there are situations, yes, where you were a victim, but I strongly still believe you don't have to be that victim, and it's a mentality. It's a way of thinking. You don't have to be victimized anymore.
I think you're right. It is all boils down to the mindset and what you say to yourself. You also talk about the pleaser.
Yeah. The pleaser is someone that's constantly in search of approval, and they even bend over backwards to do everything that family and friends may ask of them. And the pleaser is always worried about what everyone else is doing and doesn't really stand up for their own rights, even when they're asked to do something they don't want to do. They're afraid to say no. And then what happens is that you get resentment building up. And, we already know where that can lead to. To me, that's almost like cancer. But the pleaser is always someone giving in because they're afraid to say no. They're afraid that people won't like them. They believe that they must be liked or loved by everyone. And if they're not, then that is an indication that they're not lovable. And that is the furthest thing from the truth. The last one is our demander. Now, the demander has a high expectation for themselves, but it also trickles over to what they expect from others. So they set this rule or this standard that everyone should follow. Demanders believe that their way is the right way, that there's a right way and there's a wrong way to go through life. And when people don't live up to their expectations, they become angry. They get frustrated. They're disappointed. And they even go as far as tell themselves, people must do what I want. Or I can't stand it when people don't do what I want. That, I learned, can trickle over even into narcissism and behaviors of somebody that has an extreme control problem.
I've met those people.
Oh, I think we all have, all of us. And it's so funny you say that because it even trickles over even into your business relationship.
Yes, I've met people like that. They're the micromanager type person, and no matter what you do, if say you're the employee and you're doing the best you can, if it's not exactly the way they would have done it, it's not ever going to be right. I was actually married to somebody like that, where if I didn't ever fold the towels right, for example, it didn't matter that I was folding them the way he told me to fold them, but it was never right. So it just put on a lot of pressure on me until I was like, okay, fine, I just won't fold clothes, and because you do rebel after a while, because it's like, well, if I can't do it right to your satisfaction, I won't do it at all. That's how you rebel. Before we talk about how to talk to yourself in a better way, you said something, I think it was when you were talking about the pleaser, about that fear of what other people think about you. And I think that's really important, because I think I know I worry about that sometimes. I think part of that is kind of normal, but I think it can go way overboard. So when do you draw that line of worrying about what other people think about, for example, the other day I had someone tell me they didn't like my shoes. And it was like, and I'm thinking to myself, so what?
Oh, well,
you don't like my shoes. But
you didn't buy them and you're not wearing them. Who cares?
This person spent 15 minutes talking about how ugly my shoes were. And I'm like, okay, well, thank you. I didn't really know how to respond, because who cares about the shoes that I'm wearing? They're not on your feet, and they were comfortable. And that was my whole purpose of buying this pair of shoes. I had to think, I'm going to be standing on my feet for like 8 hours. I have to have shoes that I can wear and stand for that long, because nothing is worse than having sore, painful feet, and, because you're wearing, shoes that are too tight or pinching your toes or whatever it is. But I just thought that was interesting. So talk about that, the fear of what other people think, and how damaging that can be for us.
Well, it is extremely damaging. And that word that you use is, you think it is fairly normal. I agree with you to definitely. I believe that is a common way that people think I have had to work on caring. I'm a very strong, assertive type of person. And my parents could tell you stories that even from a young age, and when I mean young, I'm talking 3, 4, 5. And I see it in my granddaughter too. But I always, there's 6 of us, and my parents will tell you that I always was the one that knew what I wanted and would voice it. Have no problems voicing it, have no problems doing it, even if nobody else was on my side, even if other people didn't see it. So I was actually the opposite. I had to learn how to be a little bit more compassionate. Naturally, I am a compassionate person. I have a huge heart. I want to help the universe and every soul in it. But the reality is I can't. So I believe because I had that analytical and creative brain that I always approached everything in life like, I am going to help this person. I am going to do this, or I am going to do that. And if she cries because I was too firm with what I'm saying, she'll get over it because she will realize that I love her, and everything I say is out of love. So that's what I mean about how I had to learn how to balance the caring about what other people say. Because it is important, in my opinion, to care about what other people say. But if it starts messing with your conscience, making you sweat and get stressed out, making you feel like you're not being true to yourself, because you cannot lie to yourself. You can't lie to yourself. We might not always know how to talk to ourselves, but you can learn. And those exercises that we've all heard in our years of growing up, look in the mirror. When you're practicing a speech, what do they tell you to do? Look in the mirror. When they're practicing how you're going to approach your boss about a raise, practice in the mirror. There is a reason behind that mirror thing. Something about when you talk to yourself in the mirror, it's your time to be honest. Completely let all your guards down, your boundaries down. Nobody's around. Do it when nobody's around. And talk to yourself. Once you create that list we spoke about earlier, how you may be talking harmful things to yourself, take that list and go over them in the mirror if that works for you. But back, not to get sidetracked, but back to what you're saying, the other thing that's important to remember is, too, we know what's best for us. We know deep down inside. But what I think is a society, number one, has had its hands in making us feel shame. Nobody wants to be that one against a million. You know, you want to go with the crowd. You want to be doing what everybody else does. You don't want to stand out. So those are some contributing factors to me about why people might say some of the things that they say to themselves. The other thing is when you get to the point and you have to reflect and what you're lacking in. Reflection is a big key to avoiding some of this harmful talk that we're talking about. And when you worry too much about anything, if you eat too much salad is great for us. We all know that. But if you eat too much, did you know that there's some detrimental things that can happen to your body? So everything has to be in balance. So caring about what somebody says, yes, I believe that is something we do have to pay attention to because we don't live on the earth by ourselves. And that's just a humanity type of thing, humanitarian thing. You have to be concerned about how it's going to make your words. I've had to learn. My mother used to say, add some salt and sugar to your tongue, sweetie, you know, because it is about I'm talking to other people. So if I'm talking to other people, not everybody is like me. Not everybody, and I could take it just like I dish it out, is one of my sayings. But I just had a conversation with my partner, and he says to me, you don't like to be told when you're wrong. I was like, no, that's the furthest thing from the truth. And he says, well, then what is it? I said, well, to be honest with you, I think it's how you're saying it to me. So I try very hard, and that was something my father used to say to us, especially as girls, because we can be so emotional and, react on emotions. He used to say to us, please, whenever you're making any kind of major decision in your life, please do it with a clear head. Don't make any decisions based on emotion, because I'm sorry, but they might not be the right one. So you do have to think about what other people feel. But there's got to be a line, because if every successful person in business or in life, and mind you, I'm not saying money is what makes us successful, but if every successful person that found some contentment in life, how to live their life happy, went according to what another thought, I wonder how successful they would have been.
Right. So can you give us a few tips on how to start the process of turning our negative self-talk into positive self-talk?
Sure. I think some of the bullets that we had in this article were really pinpointed. And I'm going to read them just as we wrote them. Okay? And I'll be quick. It's only a few of them. The number one bullet was, in a summary, we said, we hope you reflect on, refer back to, and actually implement the following points in your life. Self-talk dialogue can berate or encourage yourself. It is an actual conversation you must have with yourself, and it has to be spoken aloud so that you can differentiate the positive from the negative. Go in that mirror, talk out loud, have a conversation with yourself. Self-talk is not a sign of mental illness. However, can be a valuable tool to having positive and effective communication with others. I believe that once we start being able to communicate with each other, there's a certain peace or something that comes over you, because you know what? You're less stressed. You kind of say, freak it, but not in a negative or bad way, but you're just like, you know what? I'm going to try this. I'm going to do this. So it doesn't mean you're crazy if everybody else tells you crazy. So effectively learn how to talk to yourself, then it trickles over to effectively communicating with others. You might be surprised how much more cooperation you get from others too, because understanding is prevention. And a lot of people just simply don't understand what we're saying sometimes, or why we're saying it, or why we do what we do. And then we talk about self-talk affects self-esteem. Oh boy, does it. How we conduct ourselves helps us recognize and achieve goals and ambitions, or can increase depression. It's vital to pay close attention to your thought process so you know when you need to counter those harmful or negative inner conversations. This one might take the longest, because if you're coping with having low self-esteem, coping with depression off and on, coping with overly worrying about what other people think about you, coping with constantly telling yourself you can't. I don't use that word in my house, can't, unless my arm is twisted and tied up, because some of the reality in life is there are some things that just are out of your control, but I'm going to give it my all. The last one is transforming your belief system. It is possible, and you can reassert positive self-talk that produces positive communication. There's that word again, communication.
That seems to be the theme.
It really is. It really is. And I'm going to tell you what my theory on that is, really short. My theory is when you hear about people, okay, we know the term, oh, they went postal on the job, right? You hear, we know what that term is. Okay, somebody blew up, lost their cool, and then they ended up hurting people on a job. Well, I guarantee you that that person did not just wake up that specific day and go and do this. Something was festering. Something was not being communicated by that person to the proper individual. And I've always tell people this. If your immediate supervisor isn't listening to you, if your partner isn't listening to you, it is so important to find somebody that does, because there's just something healing in saying it, even if you never said it again. If you don't want to, I'm a very private person, so I don't talk about my personal business, you know, my arguments with my better half or the children, what they're putting me through, because boy, oh boy, do they put you through stuff. But I'm careful, but at the same time, when I find myself really getting to that point and I feel like my head is so full, I'm like, I just need to talk to somebody. There's a reason for that. It's like release when you go to work out, right? All that sweating and all that, those scientific terms that they say you're releasing, and how it helps your mentality. Something physical that you do helps your mentality. It's the same kind of concept. Something about just voicing it out loud. Therapists. I haven't met one therapist that I've talked to date that doesn't have it in their regimen for one of their patients to write. There's something about writing. And if people have a challenge with writing, record it, they suggest. So there's something healing in itself by just communicating. Once you get that, start getting that down pat. And I don't want to tell your audience and people, it doesn't happen overnight. And it's going to be a challenge for some, and then for some it's not, you know. But whatever it is, your situation, if you know, and again, this goes back to being honest with yourself. If you know that you have trouble expressing yourself, or you talk down to yourself, or have these issues with this harmful talk, then I would encourage you, truly from the bottom of my heart, to take steps today. Take them small, because some of the things that we've talked about are very small things to do. And then you will see over time the results and the changes. And it's, you said it, your words, Tammy, your mindset. You're going to start noticing, starts adjusting to these new wonderful lessons that you're implementing in your life.
Wow. That is really, really phenomenal when you think about it. And I think you're absolutely right. And I'm really glad that we got to talk about this self-talk today, because every single day I have somebody ask me about issues related to communication. And this week it's been, well, this entire month, it has been very, everything seems to be all about communication or lack of communication. And it's really important that everybody does start to realize that they can take control of what they think about. And like you said, you can avoid words like can't or failure, and you can replace those with other words. So Carolyn, tell me, where can we find out more about you and your services?
Simply go to www.C as in Charlie, L as in Larry, the number 3 agency.com. CL3agency.com. And then that's going to bring you into my world of a unique kind of strategic marketing event planning company. So definitely make sure you visit our core services, which are the strategic market. And that's just a very broad umbrella, so a lot of things underneath that we work with people on. And then event planning, the same thing. We do social with the specializing in business networking or business type of events. and then there's a page that says additional mentionables. And I did it that way so that whatever gravitates to your spirit where you are right now in your phase of life, I want you to click on that certain topic. So that is a great place to start, and then it'll start branching you out to all the other arms of our company.
Well, thank you. I really, really appreciate the time that you took with me, because I think I needed to learn this today, so I really, really appreciate it.
Oh, I appreciate you. I appreciate you inviting me to your platform. Thank you.
This is Tammy Patzer. Go make it a great day.
Thanks for listening to Business Innovators Radio. To hear all episodes featuring leading industry influencers and trendsetters, visit us online at businessinnovatorsradio.com today.